Look at you.
I'm just kidding. That's so mean.
All right.
Look at your stupid body.
Look at your dumb body. You're
It
so
sucks.
frail. How are you even sitting
You
there?
have a
right
bad
now?
body, Joe.
Your body sucks.
So
Your body's working against itself. Your knees are bad.
You're gonna have knee surgery in 2 years.
You can't even beat your own body. How would you beat my body?
Your body's already kicking your butt.
Yeah. I already can hardly stand.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. I'm your host, Joe Farr. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Rudy Teeson's favorite football podcast.
way.
Yeah, that's right. Rudy
Was that last week?
That was last week.
Wow.
Doesn't feel like it, but it was. I'm
No
not going to say
kidding.
that it feels like it's been a long time because I say that on every podcast. But yeah, last week we had Rudy on. I'm joined, obviously, by my illustrious producer, Joe Teeson. How's it going, Joe?
It's going good. You were saying?
I was saying last week's episode, we had a surprise guest, and that surprise guest was our good friend Rudy.
Mm-hmm.
Our good friend Rudy Teeson. He came on, thought he really brought it. You know, his first ever podcast.
So we have him
appearance.
here again.
Yeah, it's actually his podcast now.
He bought it.
Rudy, why don't you just? No, I'm just kidding. He's not here today. As far as we know, he was not invited last time either, so he could appear really at any times. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We enjoyed it, recording it. It was a little chaotic, a little different from what we usually do. But this is the Average Joe Football Show. We're going to get to football at some point in the podcast. We're going to talk about some news. Julio Jones finally being traded, about time. And then I'm going to give you some players with something to prove in 2021. That's right, something to prove in 2021. We're going to get into that later, but we always like to start off the show talking to my producer, Joe, because, you know, he doesn't know much about football, but I think he knows a ton about life.
Yeah.
And you're just so wise. You're wise
Yeah.
beyond not only your years, but your ears, I would say. You're also wise beyond your ears.
I would think so too.
Yeah, Joe, anything, how you been?
Words from the wise?
Words from your eyes. Yeah.
I've been super good. Yesterday, you took me out on a date.
Yeah, sort of, if you want to put it that way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We played spike ball. No.
No,
man.
not spike ball.
Today I called it spickleball to my wife.
Spickleball.
Yeah, because I keep wanting to call it spike ball, but it's pickleball.
Yeah, pickleball. We are investing in a new sport.
Mm-hmm.
Pickleball. I recently got into it. So fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just a great time.
It's like I love the game of ping pong. I love ping pong, and this
Yeah.
is just life-size, human-size ping pong.
Yeah.
Like you are the paddle.
Yeah. It's like big ping pong, small tennis.
Yes, that's
It's
exactly
kinda-
what I
it's-
referred to it to a guy at work today.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect way to describe it. Big ping pong, small tennis.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, you know, just challenging enough to where you work up a sweat, but also easy enough that most people that play it are 65 plus. So, you know, we did good. I mean, I beat you pretty bad. I will
Well,
not lie.
Also, we have to talk. Okay, yeah, like Joe had played many times before. This is my first time playing.
Okay, excuses.
But yeah, anyways.
Also, Joe, the first time that we ever played, I had a really nice shot.
It was my first game. Wasn't it the
Yeah.
first game?
It was first game. It was not far into the game. Had a really nice shot. And Joe, I mean, I got to respect you for just doing everything you could to hang in there with that shot. Just went all out for it at the back of the court. Ends up tripping and falling into the fence that was behind him. And you cut up all your fingers.
Yeah, all but one. All but one of my fingers was bleeding. And it's the skin. And it's not like I cut them. I stripped the skin from the top of them. They're stripped.
This was
Look at that. No, don't even talk. Look at that.
It's actually quite brutal. Like
I know it's bad.
It's worse
man.
than you would think.
And this whole underneath my fingernail is all bruised too. Everything.
Yeah.
And that was the first game. So I played 3 or 4 games after that. So you gotta take it easy because I had an injured hand.
I respect you. I respect you for playing because that was hilarious. Like if you just imagine a guy running as hard as he can to get a wiffle ball, and you tripped like face first.
I was falling
into
for a few seconds.
You were falling, and you just right into the fence. Like the fence was there, and you were there as well.
Yeah,
Greeting
me
it.
and the fence became one.
Yeah, and you did, and that fence probably still has some of your flesh on it.
Yeah, it stripped me of my finger flesh.
Yeah,
so.
that was hilarious. I wish I would have got that recorded. That would have been phenomenal. But yeah, pickleball.
We also had to play on the tennis courts after a bit because the park and Rex department didn't turn on the lights.
Exactly. The tennis court lights were on. Pickleball courts were not. It was almost as if they were to say pickleball is not something that maybe grown men should be playing. Maybe we should take up tennis.
Yeah.
Tried to get some of the tennis players to help us turn the lights on. They were not interested.
They could not care less to help us.
They didn't even want to talk to us.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, they were not interested. I think, maybe they couldn't have helped. I don't know. But they turned the lights on for the tennis courts.
Yeah.
You'd think they could have turned the lights on for the pickleball
Do you think
courts.
they had a key? They just didn't
Oh,
want to.
listen. Tennis players, I'm not ruling them out. Okay. I mean, that's
Honestly.
such a tennis player thing to do.
And it might be. What do you think their names were?
Oh my goodness, I don't want to. It's probably like Stefan and
Trevor.
Trevor for sure. Trevor and Stefan. Oh my goodness, that's tennis players for you, honestly. But yeah, pickleball, super fun. Another thing that was not really super fun afterwards, we went. Me and my wife went home. Obviously, it was kind of late by the time we were done playing pickleball. I went home, and it was already pretty late. And then I realized that the Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather fight was happening.
Oh my goodness.
And this is that's a fight that I wouldn't have watched. Like if I was busy, I wouldn't have made a point to watch. But I was like, I'm already up. I'm gonna load this thing up and find a stream in a
what?
potentially illegal way, allegedly. And so I watched the fight, and I've got to say, I don't watch a whole lot of boxing, but that was the worst thing I've ever seen. And I was so frustrated just with Floyd Mayweather, with the whole thing. And I we should have known, really. Us people should have known this was just a publicity stunt. And I did know. But I thought that Floyd Mayweather, this is a great boxer. He's one of the greatest boxers of all time. 50-0. He's never lost. I mean, just a phenomenal. You think that he would have a little bit of pride and try to knock out a YouTuber, a guy who got famous for making vines.
Yeah.
That's why he's there. It's the only reason he's fighting you. I thought he would take a little pride in just try to knock him out. But Floyd had no interest whatsoever. And you didn't watch the fight, so I'm kind of trying to describe it to you.
I watched some highlights from it.
Okay. It was just a lot of hugging involved. And there's even some people alleging that Floyd helped Logan stay on his feet at some points. Like he would come to punch him, and he would kind of stumble, and it looked like Floyd was helping him stay up. So it's this whole thing was a scam. I mean, it was a scam. And and nobody lost in the end because nobody got knocked out, and they didn't even announce a winner. There was no decision. There was no winner. There was no loser. The only losers are the people that paid for that pay-per-view.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, we're all the losers.
We're the losers.
That was just, I don't know. It's just, Floyd Mayweather. I understand money is the most important. His nickname is literally Floyd Money Mayweather, and that's all he cares about. But take some pride in what you do, man. I understand he's old. He's quite a bit smaller than Logan Paul, but he's a YouTuber. You've been doing this for your whole life. This is your thing. And he didn't show any interest in knocking him out.
He wasn't even fighting.
No.
It was just
He was deking and dodging, and I still think he won the fight. If the judges were scoring it, I think it was not even close. Floyd won. But I mean, how do you not knock him out? I don't know. I was so frustrated. It was such a stupid fight. It got to round 8. I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
here?
they went all 8 rounds.
All 8 rounds. All 8 rounds with the guy. Well, I mean, come on. With Logan Paul. And then you had to deal with Jake Paul in the crowd. And golly, these guys, man. And I'm just playing right into what, they want to be the bad guys. They want to get on people's nerves. They want to that's how they get their publicity. And I'm just playing right into that. So maybe I should stop. But I don't know. It was a lot to take in. And, but that did get me thinking, about about boxing, about fighting, and I think boxing as a sport. I had a take on boxing before we at work before.
Unpopular opinion.
It did not go over well, and we don't need to get into it, but it did not go over well with you and Rudy. It was not a good take. Basically, the fact is the ratings in boxing are down. People don't watch boxing the same way they used to. And I think that the reason that matches like this are happening is because boxing is very desperate to get people to watch their sport, because UFC is the biggest thing in the world right now. I mean, UFC is huge. So I think that this is a thing. And I was trying to think, like, what other celebrity boxing matches you'd like to see. And, I thought about this long and hard, at least 6 or 7 minutes. And I came up with, I have a matchup that I think would be really, Joe, I don't know if you
I got one.
You got one. Okay. I asked you to prepare. You want to share yours first or should I
No, you go.
Okay. I'll go first. Okay. That's a little bit more pressure I wasn't quite ready for.
Okay.
So I was thinking a lot, and like I had a bunch of different thought processes. Like initially I was like, oh, maybe you want to get 2 big buff guys. Like maybe a Vin Diesel and like The Rock or something. Like just see them really fight, because that would be kind of cool, because they're both like big guys, and they fight in the Fast and the Furious movie. Want to see them fight in real life, or like big dudes. But then I was like, I don't know, because like we see really good athletes fight each other all the time in boxing and UFC and stuff like that. So then I was like, maybe I should go a different direction. Maybe I should go something that would be funny. Like it would just be funny to see these 2 people fight. Like seeing like Michael Cera fight anybody. I think that would be the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
Just because
I love Michael Cera.
I mean, I could beat up Michael Cera.
No, you could
Yes,
not.
I could beat up Michael Cera. Michael Cera and
George Michael?
George Michael. But I came to a good conclusion, and this I would have never guessed that this is where. And my wife kind of helped me out with this a little bit. She came up with the first. So the first person I have is Kevin Hart. Now hear me out. I know Kevin Hart is like, everybody kind of hates him. He's like a cheesy comic or whatever. But you cannot deny Kevin Hart is one of the most famous people in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the world. Like he's probably the most famous comedian right now. Just a big time guy. Kevin, also short, very short man.
Yeah, he's super short.
So
5'5".
5'5". So my thought process was, when I got Kevin Hart in mind, I was trying to think of who's another short celebrity, because I don't want to see a Floyd Mayweather, Logan Paul type where one is 6'5" and the other one's 5'9". And that was just, I don't want to see that. I want to see 2 evenly matched guys. I was trying to think of who is another celebrity that's kind of known for being notoriously short. And I don't know if you have any ideas of where I'm going. But I'm gonna say Kevin Hart versus Tom Cruise.
Oh,
Tom Cruise.
Not where I
can
thought
tell
you'd go.
you this is not where you thought I was
Not
going.
even close.
Who did you think I was gonna go?
And mine's gonna be better. The one that I thought you're gonna say Kevin Hart and Danny DeVito.
Okay. Now that would be good too, but I think that's just ridiculous.
Why?
Hear me out with the Kevin Hart versus, because I think this could be a real match. Both these guys, I think, are in really good shape. You know Tom Cruise. I know you're pretty young. Like you're aware of Tom. You're aware of Tom Cruise, right?
I didn't even watch the Mission Impossible movies.
Okay, well you should get on that. Listen to me. Okay, so this is my thought process. Kevin Hart, like I said, biggest guy in the world right now. Like just so famous. It's like him and The Rock. They're like the 2 most famous people in America, pretty much.
Sure.
Which is essentially the world. So then you take him. And he's got, like, it's basically a generational battle, because then you take Tom Cruise, who is the most famous person from, like, when my mom was my age, pretty much. Like, just, like, very famous. They're both, like, and Tom Cruise is a little older. He's 58 right now, which is insane.
That is unbelievable.
58 years old, but in an incredible shape.
Yeah.
And just a crazy person overall, like, the Scientology stuff aside. I mean, he does all his own stunts and all his own movies. That's insane. He's in really good shape. Kevin Hart, I don't know how he's doing after that car accident that he had. So maybe this is all in very poor taste to say that I want to see him fight somebody. But he's in good shape. They're both, short. And I think just like you would draw so much attention, because think about it. All the people from this generation would go to see Kevin Hart. All the people from like my mom's generation would go to see go to see Tom Cruise, and imagine the viewers for that. I mean, I'm just thinking as a businessman at this point, and not only a businessman, but I think it'd be a fantastic fight.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise versus Kevin Hart. Am I not convincing you at all?
No, yeah, that's good.
I think this is a phenomenal fight.
That would be a really good fight. I would watch it. I would maybe even pay for it.
That would be close to getting paid. I think that would, and I think that they both have pride, and they would both, they would come to the table and try to win it. I think Tom Cruise is a crazy person, and I that's what I want to see in my boxer. So Kevin Hart is between 5'2" and 5'4", is what the internet says.
Oh wow,
which is insane. And like, I'm gonna quickly check how tall Tom Cruise is.
Is he also pretty short?
Yeah, he's a short man. Like, they had to stand in boxes and stuff for some of his movies. So he's 5'7". So he's actually got, this is basically the same height difference between Logan Paul and, so he's 5'7". That's also quite short. I don't think Kevin Hart's actually that short. That seems insanely short.
I thought he was
5'4".
I watched a video. I was actually watching a video of him today where I thought he said he was 5'5" or 5 something. Yeah, 5'5".
There's actually, when you look up Kevin Hart height, one of the questions, like, it always says people also ask, and it says, is Kevin Hart taller than Tom Cruise? So I mean, this has legs. People, they want to compare these two. I think they'll want to see him fight. Okay. So that's my fight: Kevin Hart and Tom Cruise.
Nice, I love it.
You better come with some fire. I really feel like you didn't respect mine very, very much.
No, listen, there's a lot you can say about that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like you really prepared for yours, and you had like stuff to say about who would watch it.
Yeah. No, I listened. I brought it.
Basically, what I'm saying is this would be a great fight, okay? And you came to me at work today and told me to come up with something, and you said we could do it in any kind of fighting style.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's another thing I want to say. Mine would be a boxing match.
Yours would be a boxing match.
I just think that would be cool. I don't know. MMA is a little too much for them, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, mine would be a boxing match.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, you thought about yours a lot, I could tell.
Yeah.
I didn't think about mine per se that much.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Okay, yeah. But I think you're going to like it. You were saying that you would like these big guys like Vin Diesel and The Rock to fight and stuff like that. And I think I'm going to go off of that a little bit more.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm heading.
I like that. I didn't know that you would go in this direction.
That's kind of where I'm heading. Big.
Big.
What do you think when you think big?
Honestly, the first thing that popped into my head was the Great Khali. He's a WWE fighter. He's really big.
Big. You want big. You like big.
Yeah.
Okay, people like to see big people.
Yeah.
All right. I'm talking.
Okay. So these are celebrities, big people.
Jiu-jitsu.
Rolling
around on the ground together.
Fighting.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
With Big Ed.
Big Ed.
And Big Chungus.
And Big Chungus.
Okay.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Who you got in this match?
That would be just the center of gravity in this fight.
You got Big Ed and you got Big Chungus.
If you guys don't know who Big Ed and Big Chungus
Big Ed
are.
from 90 Day Fiancé. No neck Big Ed.
And Big Chungus from Big Chungus.
Yeah, Big Chungus himself. No introduction needed.
No explanation needed. He's basically even more famous than Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
What is their measurements, do you think?
Who you got? Okay, well, we got to take a look, see.
Here we go. Great. I'm glad that you had both those pictures pulled up like that. You had Big Ed and Big Chungus. That is amazing. They both have the name Big. So I was expecting you to go big as in big people, but you just went with the big name.
Big Ed from 90 Day Fiancé is 4'11".
Oh. He's still not that much shorter than Kevin Hart, apparently.
Yeah.
4'11". That is insane.
And so, okay.
Did you look up how tall Big Chungus is?
Yeah.
What are the odds that somebody else wanted to find that? I would say pretty low.
Wow. No, it says how much he weighs.
What? How? How much does Big Chungus weigh?
30,000 kilograms.
30,000 kilograms.
Yeah, right.
That's insanity. He really is Big Chungus.
The age, infinity.
Infinity years old. If you guys don't know who Big Chungus is, you have to look it up. It'll be a real treat. If I look up big, the first thing that pops out in my search history is Big Chungus.
Okay, what is 218 centimeters?
218 centimeters?
Yeah.
Okay, in 1 sec.
In feet. Hey Siri. What's 218 centimeters in feet? He's doing the math.
7 foot. 7 feet. 7.15.
But Big Ed, man.
Dude, Big Ed
Taking-
is 4'11". Big Chungus is 7 feet tall. And he weighs 30,000 kilograms.
Listen, none of that matters. What matters is what happens when you get into the ring,
The circle,
into the circle,
Yeah.
on the mats,
On the mat.
on the mats,
On the mats. It's not the
Okay.
size of the dog. It's
The
the
rolling
size of the
mats.
heart in the no neck.
Yes, exactly.
And
So-
that's where, honestly, that's kind of where Big Ed has an advantage because he's got no neck. You can't really like grab him.
Yeah, you can't choke him out.
Yeah, you might grab him to like choke him out, but there's no neck for you to grab with
Yeah.
Big Ed.
You got shoulders.
Yeah, and he's like persistent too. Like it really, it was not hard to tell that woman in that show was not interested in him.
Yeah.
And I've never really seen the show, and he just persisted. He was there. He was taking a shower with her dad at one point.
Yeah.
You know, he's a persistent guy. He's not going to give up. And Big Chungus, I mean, what can you say about Big Chungus?
I mean, there's a lot to say about Big Chungus, but I think enough has been said.
What can you say that hasn't already been said?
What can you say that hasn't already been said?
Phenomenal. You really brought the fire.
Thanks,
I
Joe.
wasn't expecting you to go in that direction. I was expecting more of a realistic direction, but that works. Big Chungus versus Big Ed. I had Tom
Who you
Cruise. Who I got?
Yeah, who you got?
I gotta go with Chungus. I don't know. I think he's just
Really?
a lot to handle.
Yeah, he's a lot to handle.
That's a
I
lot
mean,
to throw around.
Think
And,
about it
like,
realistically, though. He cannot be 30,000 kilograms.
Okay, yeah, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but 7 feet tall. I don't know. He's neat. There's no way maybe that's counting the ears.
Oh.
That could be counting the ears.
Yo, the ears got to be at least a foot, so let's say he's 6 foot tall.
Okay, yeah, let's say but even 6 foot to 4'11".
Dude, 4'11 is almost 5 feet. That's only a foot
A
difference.
foot difference. We both have pretty substantial height differences.
Big Ed has got some moves, I'll tell you.
Well, I feel like Big Ed could probably move quite a bit better than Chungus. Chungus looks like immobile. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like he can do a whole lot of moving.
Yeah. And Big Ed is slippery. See, he puts mayonnaise in his hair, man.
Does he put mayonnaise
He
in
puts
his hair?
mayonnaise.
Why does he put mayonnaise in his hair?
Mayonnaise in his hair. It keeps it shiny and healthy, I think. Something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
Or it keeps the color in. I don't know.
I doubt it. I mean, I'm not going to say that. I don't know. His hair is not a great example.
Have you ever put mayonnaise in your hair?
I actually have put mayonnaise in my hair.
Oh, what? You had louse before?
I think so. I don't know. It was as a child. I remember having mayonnaise in my hair at one point.
Oh,
I don't remember what it was all about, but I know. Have you had mayonnaise in your hair?
never.
Okay.
I don't think I ever
Yeah,
will.
me neither. Anyways,
What? Who said that?
I think my other idea was going to be me versus you.
Oh, we already know that.
Well, I know we're not totally.
Let's say it on 1. 3, 2, 1.
Me, obviously.
Oh,
yeah. It's
obviously.
good that we agree.
Okay.
We may not be total celebrities at this point, but I mean, I think that would be a good fight.
I think E-list.
So yeah, like let's go like height weight. Like I'm 6'3"
Okay.
with a 6'5" wingspan.
Okay, you're 6'3" with a 6'5" wingspan.
Yeah.
I'm 5'10"
Yeah.
with a 6'2" wingspan.
Yeah, you have a good wingspan,
Yeah.
but still not as long as mine.
Yeah, I know, but like almost like
You have a substantial wingspan.
I do.
That's
And
one thing
this
about
is in a
you.
boxing match, you're saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's say boxing.
And am I in the exact shape I'm in now, or are we both getting fit?
No, well, okay, let's say we had time to train.
We had time to train. Oh, me.
Okay,
Are you kidding me?
I hate how confident you are about that.
Are you kidding me? Oh, my goodness.
Okay, all right. I don't know if you have that. I don't know if you have that killer instinct.
I don't have that killer.
Yeah.
If I don't have to choke somebody out, I'm fine.
I don't think that you. I don't know. I don't think you have that aggression. I think I can get aggressive. I don't know if you can get aggressive like that.
Really?
Because I think you're just you're a sweet boy, honestly.
No. Yeah, I'm sweet boy.
And that might work in your favor because I wouldn't want to hit you. But I mean,
No, you don't care. You couldn't care less.
I could work up the motivation.
You
to hit
showed
you.
me that before.
Yeah, no. No, obviously I would win, but I just want to give you kind of a chance to talk about your side, about it. You could,
But okay, make it MMA. Make it. It's not just boxing. MMA. So we
MMA,
can
I
go
would
on the
win.
ground.
It's not
I would
even
win.
close.
No. On the ground, I'm better
Joe,
than
you can't even get choked out.
On the ground, I'm better than you.
You can't even get choked out. It would be over. MMA, that's why I said boxing. MMA is literally not
I
a
wouldn't
competition.
let you get me choked
Well,
out.
I would
if
do
I
it.
were in shape, I'd have the stamina and I could do it.
Yeah, but if you're in shape, then I'm also in shape.
Yeah, but then you in shape is nothing compared to me in shape.
Okay, this is getting.
I have so much more
borderline offense.
potential.
That's not even true.
You don't think
I
really?
You don't. I could bulk up.
I'm doing it right. I worked out before you came, Joe.
I can't even tell.
I know.
You know what?
I did it once.
I did it once.
What do you expect?
Are you training for this fight right now?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that's enough. I think we've talked enough about fighting,
Jeez.
right? Or unless you got anything else offensive you want to say to me.
Offensive. No, I'm not actually. I'm not a competitive person per se.
Wow, it sure seems like it.
No.
Honestly, got a little hurtful there for a little
No.
bit.
I just don't like how confident you are.
I felt like I was the least confident out of the two of us.
You're just me. I'm actually talking about it. I'm like, yeah, I could win, but you're just like, oh, I would win. Are you kidding me?
Well, listen, I don't know.
Look at you.
I would.
I'm just kidding. That's so mean.
All right.
Look at your stupid body.
Look at your dumb body. You're
It
so
sucks.
frail. How are you even sitting
You
there?
have a
right
bad
now?
body, Joe.
Your body sucks.
So
Your body's working against itself. Your knees are bad.
Yeah, you're gonna have knee surgery in 2 years.
You can't even beat your own body. How would you beat my body?
Your body's already kicking your butt.
Yeah. I already can hardly stand.
Yeah.
No,
it's okay. You have bad knees. I have a terrible lower back. So.
And that's not that important in MMA. So.
What isn't?
A back,
Okay.
knees.
Yeah.
That's
What's a back and a knee? You know?
Yeah, really. All you need is these two guys.
All you need is.
I'm holding up my fists for those who can't see, which is everybody.
What do they call them?
I'm talking Doctor
Simon and Garfunkel
Doctor
over
Quinn and Medicine Woman. That's what I'm
Simon
saying.
Garfunkel.
Walker, Texas Ranger.
Walker and Texas Ranger.
Yeah. Anyways, I think this is more than enough at this point. If you guys are still listening to the podcast at this point, shout out to you. I think we're gonna get into football, Joe. Unless you have anything else. No, I'm not even gonna give you an opportunity to say anything else.
But
Okay,
I'm just kidding.
let's hit the news. First up in the news, we have Julio Jones finally being traded after weeks, really months of speculation. There was rumors about where he would go, potentially New England looked like a favorite. Tennessee was really in it from the beginning. Seattle was a betting favorite there for a while. But in the end, Tennessee finally pulls the trigger on trading for the all-pro wide receiver, one of the greatest receivers in NFL history. Probably the greatest receiver of my lifetime. It's basically him and Megatron. Calvin Johnson and Julio Jones, I think, are the two greatest receivers of my lifetime. I was not around to see Jerry Rice. So to me, Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson, I've never seen players that good at the receiver position. And I think they're both very comparable. I think Megatron was just, athletic freak. It's hard to say that anybody's comparable to Megatron. But Julio Jones is right there. Just with his incredible athleticism, his height, weight, speed. Just a freak athlete, and can take over games. Some of the games. I'm one of the big things that I think about when I think of Julio Jones, and this is starting to sound like a retirement speech, but he's not retiring. He just got traded. But one of the things I think of when I think of Julio Jones is how his catch in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, that should have been the game-winning catch. When he made that unbelievable catch, that toe tap catch that looked like it was going to close out the Patriots. That's who Julio Jones is. He makes these game-changing plays, and that's what Tennessee is hoping that they're still getting. They traded a 2022 second round pick and a 2023 fourth round pick for Julio Jones and a sixth round pick in 2023. So essentially a second round pick and then a fourth rounder going back to Atlanta, and they receive a sixth rounder in return. So the second round pick is essentially the big thing. There was a lot of rumors that he would potentially get a first round pick. I think that was just propaganda being spread by the Atlanta Falcons. I never thought that they would get a first round pick for him. Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have traded a first round pick for him. If I was one of these contending teams that needed a receiver, I absolutely, like a Green Bay, I absolutely would have given up a first round pick for a wide receiver of Julio Jones's caliber. To me, there's a lot being said about Julio Jones's injuries and the fact that he just hasn't been healthy. Really, all of last season he was not healthy, and he didn't play a lot of games. He was not as productive As if you just look at pure stats wise, last season was a down year for Julio Jones, who's really dominant year in and year out. He only played in 9 games. He only had 771 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. But as somebody who had him on his fantasy team last year, I can tell you that when he played, he was dominant still. I think he's still a really good receiver. And there's rumors that he wanted out in Atlanta for a while, and maybe what he needs to really get back motivated. And I don't think he really needs motivation. I think he's one of the hardest working receivers in the NFL. But maybe this gets him motivated. Maybe once he gets healthy, I think he could still easily be a top 5 receiver in the NFL. I think I'm doing some top 5 rankings again this year, and there's a good chance Julio Jones will still be in the top 5 receivers in the NFL. I think going into the season, to me, one down year is not enough to say that he's washed up. I don't think he's washed up whatsoever. I mean, you look at his per game stats; he still averaged 85 receiving yards per game, which is down from his other years. Some of his other years are just insane. But there's no doubt to me that he still has the ability at 31 years old to be a phenomenal receiver. And adding him with A.J. Brown, who really recruited Julio Jones to Tennessee. He had that video telling Julio Jones to come to Tennessee, come home. Julio is what he was saying, and how great it would be to team up with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown. And he did a phenomenal job because Julio Jones is joining A.J. Brown in Tennessee. Having him team up with A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill's there. I mean, that's hard. I think you're hard pressed to find 4 offensive players on any other team that can even compare to that. I mean, you could look at maybe Kansas City with Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That might be one of the few quads that would really compete with this. I mean, this offense has gone from an offense that I think was lacking in receiver depth. I mean, Josh Reynolds was projected to be the number 2 receiver there, to now a team that I think is just flourishing with talent on the offensive side of the football. And Ryan Tannehill, he's getting a lot of heat. I mean, Julio Jones, it came out that he wanted to play with a quarterback that had a strong arm. And people right away, when they think of Ryan Tannehill, they just think, oh, Ryan Tannehill's a bad quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's not a bad quarterback. And as a Dolphins fan who watched him play 7 seasons in Miami, I can attest to the fact that when he left Miami, when he got traded to Tennessee, I remember saying he's a better quarterback than Marcus Mariota. I remember saying very clearly he's going to be the starter there. Like, he's better than Marcus Mariota. I agreed with the Dolphins that it was time to move on from him, but I always knew that Ryan Tannehill was not as bad as people thought he was. And ever since he's gotten to Tennessee, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in football, and people don't give him enough credit for that. Ryan Tannehill has been like genuinely an MVP candidate last year at times, and just an incredibly efficient and fantastic player. I mean, you look at some of the stats going around, like in his last 24 games or however many he started with Tennessee, his stats are comparable to that of like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's been that good. And as a deep ball thrower, he's one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. And then you add to that the fact that Derrick Henry is the best, most dominant running back in football, and play action is what Ryan Tannehill in this offense thrives on. You have the threat of Derrick Henry, and then you know, so teams are not going to sell out, you know, trying to blitz the quarterback or trying to cover as many guys as possible, because they want to load the box. They want to try to stop Derrick Henry. So then you add in the play action game, and that's going to get guys like Julio Jones and A.J. Brown down the field. And Ryan Tannehill, I think, is going to be really good this year. He could be an MVP candidate. I think this works so well for this offense. I think Julio Jones makes this offense so much better. I'm expecting him to have a huge year. A.J. Brown, I think, is going to have a huge year. I think this offense will be really good. As far as Atlanta goes, didn't really talk much about Atlanta. But if you are doing a fantasy draft, or if you have players from other years, I don't know how that works. Some people have players from other years. I guess it's like a dynasty league or something. But if you have a chance to go get Calvin Ridley or Kyle Pitts, who they just drafted tight end, I mean, those are good investments at this point because Julio Jones is no longer there. But I really like the Titans going out and trading for Julio Jones. And I think him and A.J. Brown could be one of, if not the best receiving duo in the NFL this upcoming season. Logan Paul against Floyd Mayweather, Julio Jones in Tennessee, Joe against me. These are all people with things to prove, in their fights, in their new places. I think everybody has something that they want to prove in life. Some more than others. Some people have established, a pretty good career. It's NFL-wise. I think there's certain players who there's not much more to prove. Tom Brady, as much as he keeps himself motivated and feels like he has to prove something every year, he really doesn't have anything left to prove. That guy's, his legacy is cemented. Guys like Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, I think guys like that, I think they don't have anything else to prove. You could say they haven't won a Super Bowl, but I don't think that a Super Bowl really decides the legacy of a defensive lineman. I think those guys' legacies have already been cemented. Guys like that. But to me, there's some guys who in the NFL who this season have something to prove in 2021. Whether they had a bad year last year, whether they haven't played up to standard their whole career to this point yet, whether they're just looking to bounce back from injury. There's tons of players I think that have things to prove in 2021. So I'm going to go over a few. I have 5 main players, and then I have a few extra other players that I'll talk about. Players just with things that they need to establish in 2021. The first one for me is Ben Roethlisberger, the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now you could argue his legacy is already cemented as well, and to a certain extent I would agree with that. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks we've seen. Definitely one of the greatest of my lifetime. He was up there with guys like Peyton Manning. Maybe not to that high, but I think him and Phillip Rivers are kind of like very similar careers. Obviously, Roethlisberger has that Super Bowl, but to me, after last year, Ben Roethlisberger going into this season has a lot to prove. And the main thing I think he needs to prove is that he's not completely washed up, because I think that's the narrative around Ben Roethlisberger right now. I think most people think the Pittsburgh Steelers are a great roster, and I would agree with that. They have an incredible defense, probably one of the most talented defenses in the NFL. They have a great receiving core with Juju Smith-Schuster coming back for another season. And you just,
What?
I saw the face that you made when I said that name. You really, you don't take Juju Smith-Schuster very seriously.
No.
Why not? Is it the Juju part or the Smith-Schuster part?
I wasn't making a face. I was mouthing Juju Smith-Schuster.
Okay.
Juju Smith-Schuster.
Juju Smith-Schuster. He's coming back to Pittsburgh, Joe.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's coming back. And last year, the Steelers obviously started 11-0. Were just one of the best teams in the NFL. And then they lost, I think, 3 of their last 4 games. And did not look good down the stretch. There was no running game. The offensive line was bad. Ben Roethlisberger kind of fell off. He just didn't look like the Ben Roethlisberger that we were used to. In the first 9 games of last season, he had 4 interceptions, and then in the last 6 games, he had 6 interceptions. That kind of puts in perspective the part of the drop off that he had. And I think just his arm strength wasn't there. He just didn't look like the same guy last year. I don't know if that was just getting tired or if he's just age has caught up to him the same way that it did with Peyton Manning there at the end of Peyton Manning's career, or maybe there were some other factors within the organization, but he did not look good down the stretch. And they had that embarrassing loss to Cleveland. Just to kind of cap things off, where it was a complete disaster from the start. And to me, Ben Roethlisberger needs to prove that he can just be a good enough quarterback. I don't think he needs to be this dominant MVP caliber quarterback. I don't think he needs to be, the Ben Roethlisberger of old. But I think he just needs to show a little arm strength, show a little of what he had at the beginning of last season, as instead of what we saw at the end of last season. And for each one of these guys, I want to go through a best case scenario and worst case scenario. So to me, Ben Roethlisberger, the best case scenario for him this year is that he plays like he did in the first half of the season. He's not amazing by any means, but he's not turning the ball over. He's playing good enough. He's getting the ball to guys like Chase Claypool, Juju, those other talented receivers on that roster. He throws for, let's say, 4,000 yards. He's got 30 touchdowns. He's got a low interception number, maybe 11 interceptions. This team, I think if he's playing like that, they go 12-5. They potentially win the AFC North. I think that's the best case scenario. They win the AFC North, which is one of the most talented divisions in the NFL. Ben Roethlisberger looks great. I mean, compared to last year, he looks like his old self, or the way he did at the beginning of last year. And this team's flying into the playoffs. And I think that's a possibility, but I think it's also a possibility that the worst case scenario is that this Steelers offense is still stuck in mud. They can't get anything done. I mean, I just think back to that Washington game, which was their first loss of last season, where they just looked awful. I mean, they could not get anything done. And that's kind of how the offense looks. He throws for, let's say, 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, something like that. And they have like a 4-13 or like a 5-12 season where they're last in the NFC North, or the AFC North rather. It's one of the, like I said, it's one of the most talented divisions in football. And if the Bengals can take that step forward, and the Steelers don't come to play, and Ben Roethlisberger doesn't come to play, it's a real possibility they could be fourth in the AFC North. Now, I'm not betting for it. I think that Roethlisberger would have to be pretty bad, and the rest of this team would have to take a pretty big step back for that to happen. But that, like I said, that's a worst case scenario, and I think that's possible for Ben Roethlisberger. And my next player with something to prove in 2021 is Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. I've talked about him just a ton on this podcast. Obviously, as a Dolphins fan, I like to talk about the Dolphins once in a while, and Tua has been one of the hottest topics in the NFL this offseason, last offseason, this last regular season. And the biggest question for him, and the biggest concern for him, is can he be the guy in 2021 and going forward? I think if you ask a lot of people, most fans in the NFL, I think the consensus would say no, other than Dolphins fans. I think even some Dolphins fans, after just 9 games, don't believe that he can be that guy. And he played well at times. The Arizona game, he played amazing, dueling against Kyler Murray. But there was also multiple occasions where he was benched during his rookie season. He just did not play well. The offense could not get anything done. You could blame that on Chan Gailey's offense. You could blame that on inexperience. Tua has come out and said that he just wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to play in 2020. He didn't know the offense. He didn't have the confidence that he needed to play, and that's all fine to say now. But he wasn't saying that last season when he was reportedly ready to go, and that hip was ready to go, and now he's feeling better with the hip. I think he's got a lot of doubters to prove wrong in this NFL season upcoming. I think he's been slandered the most probably out of any quarterback going into this season. I mean, there's certain quarterbacks, and some of them we might talk about later in this segment, I think that have gotten a way longer leash with their struggles than Tua has in just 9 games. And, and Miami has tried to go out and improve this offense for Tua. They got Jalen Waddle in the draft. They brought in Will Fuller. You add that to Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, who's probably like a top 5, top 7 tight end in the NFL. I mean, that's a good receiving core right there. Way better than what they trotted out last season. So to me, Tua needs to take that next step. He needs to show that, last year was just rookie struggles, and he needs to get to a level, I think, to where he's, a best case scenario. We're talking about best case scenario for Tua. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in football. I think that's what he has the capability to be. That's what he was at Alabama. Incredibly accurate. That was what his strength was. So to me, best case scenario, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in football. He throws for, let's say, again, 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns with that incredible receiving core that they have now. He throws a low interception number, 10 interceptions, and they're competing for the AFC East title with Buffalo and New England, and they're right there in that mix. I think that's best case scenario. Now, worst case scenario for Tua is he doesn't grasp the offense. He doesn't have confidence. He still looks shook. He doesn't look athletic. He doesn't look like his downfield passing has gotten any better. And he throws for 180 yards a game, kind of like he did last season. He finishes with like 3,200 yards, 20 touchdowns. His interceptions go way up, 14 interceptions. He just cannot get a grasp of the NFL offense. They finish, say, third in the AFC East. And then questions start coming with, Aaron Rodgers potentially not being in Green Bay next year. Deshaun Watson, who knows where that goes. Maybe they get back in that mix. Russell Wilson. There's a ton of quarterbacks that could be moving next offseason. And if Tua doesn't get it right, if he doesn't prove people wrong, he could be out of a job come next season. As quick as that seems, he needs to prove himself in 2021. And then on to my next player who has something to prove in 2021, and it's Ezekiel Elliott, the running back for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think what he needs to prove to people in 2021 is that can he remind people just how good he really was. If it seems like a few years ago that we really saw Ezekiel Elliott at his prime. This guy was a dominant force at the running back position. Coming into the NFL, 2 out of his first 3 seasons led the league in rushing yards. Was just a balanced, just playmaker. He can make plays in the receiving game. Can make plays in obviously rushing the ball. He's a tank. He can run guys over. He can juke you out. He's got breakaway speed. But injuries, and off the field issues have really hindered him the last few seasons, and he struggled. He really struggled at times last season. He didn't get over 1,000 yards. He averaged around 65 yards per game in 15 games. He had 8 touchdowns, which was a career low. He fumbled the ball 6 times, which it's honestly seemed like he fumbled more. It seemed like there was weeks where he would fumble twice every single game, and it was just back-breaking, terrible fumbles for the Cowboys. And he only had 2 games where he went over 100 yards rushing, and that just wasn't the Ezekiel Elliott that we saw early in his career. And I think people are forgetting just how good he really was. Like I said, he's had 3 seasons, 3 out of his first 5 seasons, he's had 300 plus carries. He led the league, like I talked about, 2 of the first 3 seasons in the NFL. He was just his rookie season, he led the NFL in rushing yards. He's been a dominant force, and I think he has to prove that he can get back to that level because they signed him to that huge contract, and he has to, there has to be a running back eventually come along, whether it's him, maybe Christian McCaffrey, that has to come along and look like they're worth that big contract, because we've seen guys like Todd Gurley, that contract just did not work out. We've seen running backs get paid, and like Le'Veon Bell, it just does not work out. Ezekiel Elliott has got to be hoping that he can prove the haters wrong, prove that he doesn't have a bloated contract, that he's worth that big payday that he got. I think best case scenario for Ezekiel Elliott is he gets right back on track to where he was going in his career. He has 1,600 rush yards, 15 touchdowns on the ground, which is something that he's done in his career before. He has about 350 receiving yards, maybe throws in a couple touchdowns there. He's top 3 in the NFL in rushing yards, and Dallas has like the best offense in football, and they win that division, which shouldn't be very hard. I think worst case scenario, he just can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field. Tony Pollard's looking really good. He's played well at times. Ezekiel Elliott's playing good when he's on the field, but he's just not great. And that contract continues to look like an albatross for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that's a worst case scenario, but I'm confident Ezekiel Elliott can get back and prove himself in 2021. Another player that we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast, and really has been, a big headline of this offseason is Carson Wentz, the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, obviously previously of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think he is, without a doubt, the perfect example of somebody who has something to prove in 2021. Because the Colts are not committed to this guy long term. They could get rid of him after this year and have no cap implications whatsoever. Just move on. To me, he needs to prove that he can get his career back on track. He was one of, if not the worst quarterbacks in football last year. And I've had some debates, with people on Twitter, and just, people want to just throw that away as he didn't have offensive linemen that were capable. He didn't have a very good receiving core, things like that. And that's all fair. I totally agree with the fact that he did not have talent around him. And I've talked about this, multiple times on the podcast. The Eagles just didn't have, talent, whether it would be injuries or whatever it was last year. But I don't think you can just throw all of the blame on those factors. To me, Carson Wentz was terrible last year, and I talked about it so much during the season, and how frustrated I was with him. And there, at the beginning of the season, I was kind of on the train where he just doesn't have any help. He needs help. The reason that he's struggling because he has nothing around him. But there was points where, he would run around and throw the ball up and just no plan. He looked like a complete mess, and he was a mess. His confidence was shot. He apparently was not happy with that they brought in Jalen Hurts, which affected his confidence, which to me is insane. As an NFL quarterback, to have your whole game fall apart because you lost a little confidence because you're scared of the guy behind me, that did not sit well with me when it came to Carson Wentz. And I've always been a Carson Wentz fan, and I like Carson Wentz as a quarterback, as a player, as a person. I think he's a great dude. But to me, I lost a little bit of respect for him. Just his confidence being shot so much just from a rookie quarterback coming in. That doesn't sit well with me. And I hope he can find a way to get that confidence back in Indianapolis, because I think he needs to. He was really bad. He's got a much better supporting cast. I think their offensive line is substantially better. The receiving core is probably better, although I don't think Indianapolis's receiving core is as good as people give it credit for. I think they have good players. Michael Pittman, I think, is an up-and-coming player. T.Y. Hilton, he's not who he used to be, but he's still a good player. But I think they would have really benefited from bringing in a guy like Julio Jones. I don't think the receiving core is amazing by any stretch, but he's got a better supporting cast. He's got a better defense. I think best case scenario for Carson Wentz is that, he's back to a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. He throws for, let's say 4,500 yards or 4,200 yards, something like that. He's got 35 touchdowns, really low interception number. He brings those turnovers down. He doesn't throw interceptions. He's got like 7 interceptions. He's an MVP candidate, comeback player of the year candidate. They win the AFC South. They beat out the Titans and Julio Jones. And they're right back on track to where they were last year. And I think worst case is he just never gets that confidence back. We don't see the old Carson Wentz. He still doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look confident. He throws for like 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, and he's got like a huge interception and turnover number, like 20 picks or something, which with the way he was playing last year, I don't think is outrageous. He was a turnover machine last year. And maybe that Indianapolis, I've said I think the Colts defense is due for a little bit of a step back. I don't think they're, one of the most talent, I don't think they're the top 3 talented defense in the NFL. I think they played really well last year. I think we could expect a little bit of a step back from them. I think they still have talent. I love the Kwity Paye draft pick. But, if all of a sudden that defense takes a step back, then they're not as good. And they can't compete with the Titans for that division. I think that's the worst case scenario for the Colts and for Carson Wentz. And moving over to the defensive side of the ball, and one player that I think has something to prove in 2021 and beyond is Jadeveon Clowney, the edge rusher for the Cleveland Browns. He's a guy who I think has gotten so much talk with so little production over the last few years. This guy, people treat him as if he's still an elite pass, or if he was ever an elite pass rusher in the NFL. I think there was times in his career where he was a disruptor. He made some big time plays. But to me in 2021, he needs to prove that he can be a disruptive force, that he can get that big payday. I think this is a big thing for him. He's never gotten that big contract because he's never had big production in years where he needed to get that contract. He had 0 sacks last year with the Titans, which is just I mean, he didn't play a whole lot, but he's also never had double-digit sacks in an NFL season ever, which is, it seems hard to believe, but he's never had double-digit sacks. He hasn't been able to stay healthy in his career. And, you know, he's had good pressure numbers, good hurry numbers, but to me, you got to get sacks. You know, and if there's a place where you can go that would help you get to that point, I don't know if there's a much better place than playing opposite of Myles Garrett. You know, that could be game-changing for Jadeveon Clowney. I think that is something that that you're hoping that it brings the best out of him, because we haven't seen him make those game-changing plays in years. I remember a few years back him making some huge plays in a playoff game against the Patriots. Now, they didn't end up winning that game, but I remember just how dominant he was in that game. And we just haven't seen that version of Jadeveon Clowney in a few years. He had a few flashes in Seattle, but I think he's got to prove that he can be a game-changing, game-wrecking edge rusher, and that he can do that opposite, you know, a guy who could be a defensive player of the year candidate in Myles Garrett. And, you know, and I think best case scenario for Clowney is that he finally gets that double-digit sack mark. You know, he gets like 11 sacks, you know, four forced fumbles. He gets like 40 pressures. He's just a game-wrecking force. Him and Myles Garrett are the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. They're just a dominant Pro Bowl type, you know, and the Browns are winning the AFC North. They're a top 2 seed, and you know, they're flying with an extremely talented young defense. Jadeveon Clowney finally has that big season in a contract year. And I think worst case scenario is we see what we saw last year with Tennessee, where, you know, he just can't stay healthy. He ends with like a sack and a half, you know, better than 0 sacks last year, but still not good. And he's just not a difference maker. He's just, you know, he just doesn't really help the Cleveland Browns. And if he has another season or two like that, he might not have very many years left in the NFL. I mean, you have to show me something. You could talk about pressure numbers and disruptive, but you got to get sacks. To me, there's no more disruptive play than sacking the quarterback for a 7-yard loss. That's about as disruptive as you can be without getting a turnover. I mean, so if you want to be disruptive, if you want to revive your career, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney needs to have a big year this year in 2021. And that kind of wraps up the main guys that I want to bring to the table, with guys that have things to prove in 2021. I do have a few others just to kind of quickly go over. I think guys, there's a lot of quarterbacks I think that have things to prove. Justin Fields, the only rookie that I had in consideration. I just think the fact that, you know, he had 3 quarterbacks drafted in front of him, he looks motivated. He didn't seem happy about that. I think he's going to be motivated to prove that he's the best rookie quarterback, that people shouldn't have passed on him. Jalen Hurts, I think it's obvious this is a tryout year for him. He's got to prove that he can be an NFL quarterback. He can be the guy for the Eagles in 2021. Matthew Stafford, he's got to prove that he can be as good as people are penciling him in to be. Can he really take this Rams offense to another level? Can he finally win some games on a talented roster? You know, I'm convinced. I think this Rams team is going to be flying, but he still needs to go out and walk the walk this season. And, you know, there's other guys. AJ Green, I think, in Arizona, needs to prove that he can be a decent receiver again. I mean, people are just kind of writing off his career like it's over. Can he be a good second option there to DeAndre Hopkins, or is he even better than, you know, the other receivers that they have there in Arizona? Zach Ertz came to mind, the tight end for the Eagles. There's been a lot of rumors about him potentially being traded. I know Buffalo seems to be very involved in those rumors. Can he get back to? He was a top 5 tight end for me going into last year's NFL season. Did not play well this last year. Was hurt for the majority of the year. Can he get back to that top 5 tight end status, or is his career just, you know, on the downslide? And then you get over to guys that aren't players, guys like Mike Mayock, the general manager for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think he's had a lot of really questionable draft picks the last few years, and I think, you know, maybe it's not even him that has to prove something in 2021, but it's the players that he took so far that have to prove for him in 2021, because I think, you know, John Gruden's not getting fired. He's got that 10-year contract. He's not getting fired. And if those draft picks don't pan out, it's going to point right back to Mike Mayock, the general manager there. And he's going to have to take the blame. He's got to be praying that some of these guys like Jonathan Abram, Damon Arnett, Cleveland Farrell, some of these guys just pan out. Alex Leatherwood. I mean, these guys need to pan out for Mike Mayock. And then finally, Cliff Kingsbury. I've said, we just don't know who that guy is. Is he a good coach? I mean, what has he really shown us that he can do on that offense? I haven't seen enough from him. I want to see him, do something special with all those weapons that you have there on offense. But that kind of wraps up today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really enjoyed. I thought this was a good topic to talk about. I'm excited for the 2021 NFL season. Feeling more motivated to talk football. Hoping to get into writing a little bit. I've been slacking quite a bit as far as writing goes. Just been really busy in my life lately, but trying to get back on that writing grind. Stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for listening. Joe, I don't know if you have anything you want to say before we wrap up the show. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Can you like? I don't think you can like a podcast. I don't know.
Whatever. I don't know. I think you say like and subscribe every time. But
I think I do. I don't think you can like, but just subscribe.
Like it in your heart.
Yeah, just like. I don't want you to like it. Just like it as an emotion. And subscribe. That helps. Share the podcast. That helps a ton. If you guys like football or whatever the heck we talked about at the beginning of the show, if you like that, share it with your friends. Give us a 5-star review, 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Lord knows I did. And we will catch you guys on the next one.
I don't know. I think you say like and subscribe every time,
I
but
think I do. I don't think you can like, but just
Just-
subscribe.
like it in your hearts.
Yeah, just like. I don't want you to like it. I like don't
Mhm.
like just like it.